Hey, Nermal, how are you? Nice to see you.
Hi, Fabio.
I'm excited. This is, as I mentioned to you briefly, it's my first podcast, so I'm excited to go through the experience and all going well, provide value to your listeners. Yeah, let's just see where it takes us. I'm keen to speak on the topics that you have in mind, and I'll answer them as best as I can.
So, I know you from your days in DFP, the recruitment agency, the big one. But do you want to expand on those things, on what other things you do, or what are you doing these days, so that it gives listeners a
Yeah,
context?
sure. No problem. So I have over 21 years in recruitment experience, both in business development, as you mentioned, and also as a recruitment consultant. I've worked for generalist agencies as well. Also, I have worked did a stint in internal recruitment as well, which was showed me the differences between agency and internal, but have learned a lot with my journey in 21 plus years. Yeah, I suppose, as you mentioned, I've worked for big organizations. I started my career by accident in recruitment back in 1999, where I worked for Adecco, who are very big worldwide. Then I went to Drake International, who are still well known, and then worked for a few other organisations. You mentioned DFP here in Australia. I think big on the eastern seaboard side and gaining a lot more traction here in Perth. Then I've switched my focus to doing a little bit of internal recruitment, where I worked for a manufacturing organisation. That was eye opening. I also now work for a smaller boutique company, assist the owner there, Kerry, for Moon Recruitment. And so each has provided me with different experiences and different challenges, both from the candidate perspective and also the client perspective. So it's been quite rewarding career that I've had so far. And I think it's the people that you meet along the way. And I think, my philosophy is recruitment is a people business. And I think we need to remember that as well, because it's people what makes the world go round, let's say. So yes, I've been very blessed so far with my time in recruitment. As I said, I've met many great candidates, great people like yourself, Normal. That's where we met many years ago now, which has been great, and also great clients. And I think the joy that I get is uh, being able to place
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
into a role where they're going to be fulfilled. It's going to meet their goals and their needs, and also match them to the client that is going to be able to provide that, and the client's going to be able to get that value from the candidate as well. So I'm looking for a win-win.
Good, good. Um, recruitment in industry is very important for everyone. You want to get into any professional roles, but it's very important for people like us who come from outside of Australia. So we have no idea of how it works. And generalist, I'll give an example. Like when I was in India and I was about to come to Australia, I was applying for jobs from India. It's like, you if you have a job in hand when you come here, it's good. There's no lag, and you can just start straight away. But every time I applied for a job, I got a few interview things, and then they said, "Where are you located actually?" Because I was not giving any Australian address. I was still giving Indian address. So they will say, you're not in India as of now. So how about you come back to us when you are actually here? So I think with your experiences and your insights, many people can benefit who are yet to come to Australia, and who are new to Australia just now, so that they can get onto that journey faster and get into some employment much faster than the time it took for me to get into something. It took me around 2.5, 3 months to get my first job. So that's the time it took. So anyway, uh, so there is one way is to apply directly to any person, and then one is the recruitment agencies. So how would give an insight on how a recruitment agency works? What's the role?
So if you are applying or registering with an agency, let's say, just a generic registration, you can normally just go to their website and submit your CV. Okay. I think probably the next step would be you will always get an automated email. That's the way systems are set up for your general registration. And then you will get a call depending on the experience, because agencies, they look for roles that they need to fill immediately. So whether it's temporary or permanent roles where they need to fill immediately. If you apply with a generic sort of application where you're not applying for a specific role, you will go onto the database, and the databases are quite sophisticated these days, or the CRMs that they use. So you can actually do keyword searches for who you are looking for. So I always encourage people to register with agencies, and providing that they do a good job with their CVs, and they really articulate their skills and experience. And one tip that I would give them is to look at what the job ads are saying, and provided you've done those duties and you have that experience, use the same languaging in your CV. A lot of the times when consultants do searches, they're doing keyword searches. Okay. On the other side, if you're applying for a role that an agency has advertised on behalf of a client, just make sure that you address what the advert is saying as well, and make sure that you put that in your CV, and take the time to do a cover letter. And my biggest, I suppose, tip would be to, again, match your CV to the job that you are going for. Okay, that you're looking at being considered. Your earlier question was around about the clients. So if I understood correctly, we do have agreements with clients that are looking for people. Okay. So depending on what the role is, we will always go to our database first. And at times we'll also advertise to attract the right candidates to us so that we can present to the client. So, and at times there is also the reverse marketing aspect when you're talking about patching. That does happen too in our industry as well. Okay.
So if I understood this correctly, there is two ways how recruiters advertise. One is where they already have a job from a client, so they have an agreement, and then there's a job, and then they are advertising for that role. And the other is where they are just saying that, come to us, we need your details and CV, so that they can build up a database of.
That's right. So a lot of the times we are preempted by clients too, saying, let's say in July, as an example, we are looking for, let's say from a blue collar perspective, we are doing a shutdown, and we are going to be looking for mechanical fitters, boiler makers, riggers, what have you. So a lot of the times the agencies will prepare with that, not only utilizing their database, but also advertising to attract the candidates so that we can supply the client to meet their needs.
Right, right. So one thing from that is that when I'm supplying my details to a advertisement or a advertiser, how do I know that they are a legit advertiser? Especially because I've seen in many platforms, especially on Indeed and LinkedIn, where recruiters will job post jobs about remote jobs, that you can work from home, online jobs. Give us our CV. So it starts with CV, and then they'll start asking for your personal documents. Like, we're checking your work rights. So can you give us your passport? Can you give us this? Can you give us this? And I'm always, hesitant. Like, I don't know you. There's very less information about on your websites or something. So how do you know, or how a job seeker should assess if that agency is legit or not before giving that information?
Um, with everybody is worried about getting scammed these days, and so we have to be very vigilant online. So I think first and foremost, go by your gut feel. Your gut feel is so intuitive. And I think that would be the first thing to do. Give as little detail as possible at the beginning would be my recommendation. But also see if you can do some due diligence in searching not only online but also, well, I suppose online in social media groups, Google reviews as well, if they do have a presence on Google reviews, and try to make an informed decision that way. I probably wouldn't be passing on any of my personal information, like let's say your ID or anything like that, because we know the implications that could happen, for that. But I think it's a matter of let me give you an example. A few years ago, they're getting so sophisticated now. They
Mhm.
were contacting our candidates on WhatsApp, and they would actually know who the consultant, what the consultant's name was, and so we'd be getting calls saying, "Are you contacting us through WhatsApp? I've never seen that before," which has never been a practice. And so we did find out that there was, and this was happening, I believe, to a lot of recruitment agencies across the board. And so we would get, and then I suppose what I'm trying to say is that our candidates were used their, I suppose, their initiative to contact us to make sure that it was legit, and it wasn't legit. So we were able to then send out a blanket email to all of our database, advising them against, obviously, this WhatsApp methodology that they were using to possibly get information. I don't know what their intention was behind that. So yeah, you have to be vigilant. But if you weren't sure, if say if a new agency popped up and you weren't sure about them, again check Google,
Uh,
see if they're also registered with the governing body, the RCSA, as well. It would always be a good indication as well. Let me think. What else could you do? Yeah, really just have a look at online, especially through social media. A lot of people would are onto scams straight away, so check that as well.
Thank you. So now I've found that the agency is legit. I've put in my applications. I've done my CV,
So
everything.
there's two ways of looking at it. We can go down the generic registration where we would put you on our database. Okay, so for any roles that do come in, you could that match your skills, you will show up. That's sort of in a basic sense. What I would suggest though is if you have registered with an agency, make a call and try to build a relationship with the consultant. Okay, whoever's handling the role or whoever might be handling the type of role that you're going for that agency. Okay, that would be probably the first thing to do. Get to know your consultant and build that relationship, I think, is very important. On the other side, if you're applying directly for a role that the agency has advertised on behalf of one of their clients, what can you expect? You could expect, one, you'll get a generic emails, because sometimes we get 200-300 applicants per role, and there is normally one consultant looking after it, the role. So it's very hard. Even though we try in all the organisations that I've worked for, we do try to get back to everybody one way or another. Secondly, if you match the criteria, you'll be shortlisted for a telephone screening. Okay, so they'll have a chat to you, and they'll ask a lot of different questions like, um, let's say, your salary expectations. They'll also gauge on how you sound on the phone, especially, and I always say this, if it's a customer service role and you come across grumpy, that's one way. Normally, it's a knockout. You're knocked out for that role. So knocked out is probably a terrible term, but you understand what I'm trying to say. So then they'll screen you. They'll ask about your qualifications, as I said, your salary expectations, your current experience. Be also prepared for the question, if they are in a current role, why are you looking at moving from your current organisation? Now, there's no right or wrong answer there. Everyone has their own reasons, and as recruiters, we understand that. Then we'll go through another phase. Should you get through that phase, that I think, oh well, there's a lot of synergies here for this person to that role. They'll invite you for an interview, and that can be done face to face, which is my preference, or online, a bit like what we're doing now, to really explain to the candidate a lot more about the role and sort of understand how their personality also fits into the culture as well. As recruiters, we do go out to the workplaces and ensure that we understand what the culture is, your team who you'll be working with as well, which is very important. Otherwise, if we don't know, it's very hard to let the candidate know what they're going to be up against or in for as well. Okay. So after that, then we'll combine a shortlist and send that off to the client. And if that candidate is successful, they'll provide they'll be will provide all their details, I should say, to the client and encourage them to interview the candidate so they can further assess their suitability for the role. Then, depending on the client's, I suppose, response, and if they feel that the person is suitable for the role, then normally they'll go to reference checks, and then providing that turns out really well and they agree on other things like salary and what have you, then they'll be offered a contract. That's sort of a generic way of sort of putting it in a nutshell for you.
So, what would you give as a timeline for this whole process? Because, like, I am a job seeker, I put in an application, and now I want a response maybe in 2 days. From your end, it might take 2 weeks to just collate all the job applications.
We try to get back to everybody as soon as we can. But if you are looking for, to give a timeline sometimes can be difficult because there's a lot of factors. But if you're thinking of a permanent role, let's say, we look for about, I would say on average, 2 to 4 weeks, okay, to go through the whole process. And I'm talking about from if you are successful, shortlisted, and presented to the client, by the time the client makes the decision to offer on that role, is is probably about 2 to 4 weeks. Let's say 3 weeks on average. But there is industries that take a little bit longer, and one is government because of I suppose, the background checks as well that they need to do, their system, their protocols, their process, they need to be followed, and that can take a lot longer. I'm not sure if you've been through the government process, but you know that it's probably more than 2 to 4 weeks, and sometimes they will surprise you. They will move a little bit quicker. From a temporary perspective, 24 to 72 hours is fair, I think. But we also have the scenarios where someone may require a receptionist for the same day as well. And this is why agencies will build pools for short-term sort of temporary roles. So I remember one of the organisations I worked with, their promise was to have someone within 4 hours. Okay, so it does depend on the situation as well. But yeah, so I'd say from the permanent side of things, it would be, yeah, so to say 2 to 4 weeks generally. It can be a little bit longer. There is also the immediate need as well. So imagine if someone's going out for Melbourne Cup lunch, they're taking the whole team out, but they need someone back in the office to answer the phones. That's what, as agencies, we do also prepare for. And so we put those people that are available at a drop of a hat on an availability list so that we can be responsive to the client from that perspective. The other thing also to keep in mind is where I currently work, we do a lot of shutdowns. And so sometimes the candidate will be up and running with, let's say 24 hours, but you have to wait for the mobilisation to happen to site as well. And there's a lot of things that go in the background, like inductions and flights to get the person there. So whilst they've got the job offer, it doesn't mean that they'll start straight away. There may be a delay of a few days or even up to a week or more.
Yeah. Interestingly, I had a process. I was part of a process, and I did the interview, did the referee checks and everything. And from the referee checks, the day I sent them my referee names, till they finalized the process, it took 2 months. So for 2 months, they were deciding on something, or someone was on leave, or something was going on. Yeah, so that can go there. And I was just waiting and waiting and waiting on getting a response on either way. So you can make a decision on where you are. But anyway, so moving on, like, what common mistakes do you see people making when you are assessing those applications?
So I'm not sure if they're mistakes. I think sometimes people don't know what they don't know. I know that I remember at school when I was going to school and about to graduate and go into the big bad world, as we said, we didn't really do much on CVs. It was sort of you learned from somebody else, and back then when I was first job, I was typing on a typewriter. So things have changed these days. But I think yeah, I think taking the time to do a cover letter, I think is so important because it introduces yourself, and don't make it generic, but link in for what the role is about in your cover letter. And it doesn't have to be super long. It doesn't. It can be, half a page. But you want to, I believe, you want to, in your cover letter,
Hmm. Hmm.
address that, one, you're a worthy consideration for that role, and two, show that you understand that role. I think so. And the other thing I would say is, pick up the phone, and try to speak to the consultant. Just introduce yourself, and because a lot of people seem to be scared of the phone these days. That's what I'm trying to find. Everything is done on email or text, which is great. But I think, how many times have we gone through the scenario? I may have spoken to you on the phone, and you build up. I wonder what normal looks like, or I wonder, sort of thing, and then it's totally different. So, and I think you can also um, build that rapport over the phone as well. There's your voice inflection, your intonation, and what have you. So I think, yeah, pick up the phone. I think it's so important. And the other tip I would have is have a well prepared CV, and also attach your documents. If I speak for the blue collar side, um, as an example, a lot of, especially if they're working on mine sites, they will require tickets, like working at heights, confined spaces, for example. Attach everything. You want to make the recruiter's job as simple as possible. Okay, because as recruiters, as you probably know, we're working on multiple roles as well, and so we're always pretty much under a lot of time pressure to deliver for our clients as well. So yeah, they're probably the main tips that come to mind.
Um, so when you are assessing the applications, like, apart from the CV and their tickets, which is a hard thing, there's the soft part of recruitment, where I've read that many younger generations, they are looking for cultural fit and work-life balance, and how much you are giving work from home. And work from home was a big issue in the recent elections. That big that thing is. Uh, there might be other recruitment tools which I've seen that instead of CV and an interview, they will ask for video, record your video to these questions, and then they will assess it later.
As a candidate, how do you manage it? Sure. Let me start with the work from home. Obviously, since 2020, it was, a lot of people, it was proven that you could work from home and be very productive too. And I think people have got used to the luxury of that. And you'll see that a lot of jobs that are advertised these days, you'll see that they'll say hybrid role, you know, 2 days work from home or 1 day work from home. So this is still a big draw card for people, and I think a lot of candidates have got used to this, and so it's almost come as an expectation now for the role. However, what I'm seeing now is that there's a big push to bring everyone back into the office as well by a lot of organisations, and I can understand the reasons why. But so I think it's going to be a balancing act here. I think I remember when I was during 2020 when I worked from home. It was great from the sense that your commute is what, not even a minute. So there is the time saving there. I did like that during my lunch break I could put on my load of washing, as well. So it was, but I think what I did miss from working from home and a lot of candidates that I spoke to was that banter that you have within the office, that interaction that you have with your colleagues. So yeah, I think it's always up for negotiation, but I can see a push now because a lot of the office space that clients have invested in, they obviously want, you know, to utilize that and have everyone come back into the office. So from that perspective, in relation to your question about the online videos, like the video sort of interviews, they I have been part of a few processes like that where we've actually sent out maybe 100+ videos. I think it was very interesting to see how people responded. Some people were um, natural in front of the camera, but there was a lot of people that didn't like it, or you could tell they sort of struggled and stuff like that. And I think as long as the clients that are using this technology are aware of that fact and really focus on the answers, I think there's no issue. It is a time saver from the perspective, so I can understand why clients do it. But I think also nothing beats face to face, if you can, for the simple reason is that there is so much more that you pick up. There's that intuition, that feeling, the mirroring that goes on, uh, the eye contact. There is. I think nothing beats face to face, but it has proven to work quite well. And obviously, with technology going the way it is at the moment, it is an option for agency for clients to use that technology. So yeah, it has its pros and cons, in my opinion.
This is interesting because when I got those requests to do online video responses, and I had to prepare for the responses to those questions, but they have to be in that time period which they give. Like it shouldn't be more than 15 minutes overall. So I have to fit my answers within those time periods. But then because I was new to this process, so I was always looking at the camera. And if I'm looking at the camera, am I looking at my answer scripts that I've prepared? And then is my voice okay in that recording properly? So that thing comes in. So there's, instead of concentrating on one thing, which is interview, now I'm concentrating on three things, which is the video and the audio and the recording and giving the answers and fitting it within that 10-15 minutes what they ask me. So I found it a bit challenging, but it's a fun thing to do. Once you get used to it, it's a fun thing. Um, so one thing that I'll ask, which I was recently doing, is looking for jobs interstate. So, like, I'm in Perth or WA, but I'm also trying to expand and move or look for jobs in, say,
Yes, the
Melbourne.
process is quite straightforward as well. I would say the tips that I've given you just in reference to contacting the consultant, I think in the first instance, because I think the consideration is also whether the client is willing to relocate someone from interstate as well, because there is costs involved with that. So having that initial conversation with the recruiter, not only about your experience and what you can bring to the role that you're applying for, but also whether the client would consider, having, bringing someone over from, let's say, Western Australia to Melbourne, or Victoria or New South Wales or Queensland. So it's worth, I would say, probably that would be the first thing. But and again, if you've got the skills and the experience, it's just location, isn't it? At the end of the day. And the good thing is that you've got experience in Australia as well. So that's also always going to be a bonus too. So I would approach it the same way. But I think that relationship with the consultant, having a chat to the consultant, is important, because that'll also save you time if they'll say no, listen, the client's not even going to entertain the idea. Save you time in applying for the role as well. That's my take.
Right. So we've talked about things from the job seeker perspective and from the agency or the employer perspective, but I'm looking to get to know more about things from the recruitment, like your agency of how does life
Like,
looks at your end.
got you. Sure. So without a coffee in the morning, I'm no good. So that's my first step. I'll go into the office, um, just check on my colleagues as well, make sure they're all doing great, and then we get straight into it. From answering emails, getting back to candidates, looking at adverts, responding to those that have applied, doing the screening. So all the recruitment process happens. So there is a lot. I think one of the benefits of working in a small team is also sharing information about candidates, jobs, and being there as a support, for each other. The day is varied. The day is varied. I've mentored a few people that have become consultants, and when they when they start, I always tell them, I said, this is going to be one of the most roller coaster rides that you're going to have, right? Because you're dealing with not only people, but you're dealing with people that have different wants, needs, desires, both on the client side and also the candidate side. But I always say to people that get into recruitment, it can be one of the most rewarding areas to work in. When I started, I did start as a consultant originally, and that was overseas. And I had to do things like not only write ads to the phone, so speak to people, so the communication was important. I learned about payroll. I learned, as I mentioned, advertising. I learned counselling. Not that I've got a degree in it, but listening to candidates and also clients, I suppose, concerns and challenges they're having. You learn so many different things, and it does take you. Um, it does give you a good broad understanding of business. Okay, you've got to learn about legislation. And the reason I'm saying is that I still incorporate all that in my day. So when we're placing people, and we've got to look up the legislation on through the Fair Work Awards, and interpreting those. So your day is so varied. So not only are we speaking to people, there's always the back office side of things and the processes and protocols that you need to follow to ensure that one, you're compliant, and two, that you're providing the best service that you can to both your candidates and your clients.
So, with your 21 years of experience, you would have had many, many stories. Give us an indication of any unusual or memorable recruitment story that you have, or maybe two stories that you had come across.
Yes, listen, I've had some really great experiences, some really funny experiences. One that comes to mind is I was doing a recruitment in down in the Rockingham area, and we were trying to get local people. And these days, I don't probably dress up in a suit as much as I used to, And so we did this recruitment drive down south of the river here in Perth, and I think back then, so this would have been the 2000s, early 2000s. The recruiters had a certain look. You'd wear your suit, your tie, and you had a compendium in your hand. And so we were doing this recruit down south of Perth, and I was saying hello to people, approaching people, saying welcome, and they thought that I was trying to um, recruit them for a religious denomination. So they thought I was trying to start my own church. So that was one of the funniest things. I'd never expected that. Um, so that's one that comes to mind. I also had some great experiences over in overseas. They do things similar, but just the mentality is a little bit different. I was tasked with working with an organisation that they supplied the cable, and I think it was going from memory, it was going from the south of England all the way to New York. So it was to do with data, optic fibre, and so I got to know one of the gentlemen. He came over from the US. He was on the eastern seaboard. He was a bit like me. He had an Italian background, but was born and bred in the US. And it was one of the easiest roles that I ever did. I presented him 10 candidates, and he goes, "Yep, I'll take them all." And I thought, my gosh, I had to pinch myself to think, what do you mean? You're not going to? Yeah, no, I'll take them all. They all look great. I've had a chat to them. You sent them to me. And he was more interested in going out for a night in the town where I was working at the time. So, but really nice guy. And I said, just the different experiences of working in different countries as well. That's also been a highlight. One funny story: I was sent to Berlin when I was working overseas to recruit for a call center for a very well known company, and they had to be German speaking. They could speak English. And so one of the most unusual requests that I had was, oh, will you bring my horse with me? Can my horse come? Sort of thing. So I was navigating that there too. So yeah, so many experiences. They're the ones that come to mind. But there's been so many experiences. Ones that I'm really fond of. Really look back on with a lot of I suppose affection.
Right. So you talked about working with people from different backgrounds and countries. Have you seen any like generic differences or like broad scale differences between seekers from different countries, like cultural differences, or gender differences, like how women approach a job advertisement differently to a man approaching a job advertisement?
I would say is in reference to sort of male and female approaches. I find generically speaking, in majority of the cases that I've had from let's say people outside of Australia applying or new immigrants coming in, that the ladies are very proactive. You know, the men seem to be a little bit more laid back, but that's one thing I've seen. The ladies are really wanting to to get a start in a new country, and I respect that. I really do. I think many years ago I was put on a panel to help immigrants find their first job in Australia, and it was through a contact of mine. And I the amount of talent that was in that room, and I'm talking about, you had engineers, you had software developers, mining engineers, you had accountants. There was so much talent there. It was amazing. And for me, it was always, how can I help? How can I help? And unfortunately, I suppose the roadblock for them was not so much the language, because their language was pretty good. They had a certain level of English was good, but it was having that Australian experience on their CV. Okay, so that was always a challenge to navigate. So but very capable, very capable. If not as good as an Australian, probably even better. With what they did and their dedication, I could not I could not believe. Wanting them. They're coming to a new land. And they want to make the best. For themselves and their families. For whatever opportunity. So there was definitely more of a hunger that I saw in those folk than I've seen, before. So yeah, it was just a wonderful experience to get to know them and try to help them out. I did have success. I placed 3 civil designers at one of the local councils here, And because I sort of said to them, I said to the council that I was working with at the time, I said, they've got everything that you need. It's just it's been done in another country. Again, I keep talking about location. And they rang me. They gave them all a contract. Had one that was from I think Northern Africa. Uh, another one was from Malaysia, and the other one I think was from Nepal. So and now they're all. I still keep in touch with two of them still today, and they're working in wonderful jobs at the moment within local government. So they actually progressed, but they've changed council. And when I remember speaking to the to my contact at the council, which was a lady in HR, she said, "We can't believe their dedication." One gentleman was taking two buses to get to work, and he'd be there early. And so I think that opened the council's eyes. So from then on, they always said, "Listen, it's aptitude, it's attitude. If they've got the goods as well in regards to experience, we'll have a look at them." So that was one thing that I suppose you were asking me about recruitment experiences. That was probably one of my most fondest memories of being able to place, three people that had no Australian experience. That was an achievement, I thought.
You talked about so many achievements and things, but there's always a other side. So, what do you see, or do you see any big challenges you face as a recruitment agent, or additionally the recruitment industry as a whole these days? Yeah, like for example, there's low unemployment rates these days, so that's creates its own challenges for agencies. Not many people looking for jobs.
Sure. It's a good question. I was having a look at some figures just yesterday on, our labour requirements here, and I think the four major areas where, listen, all areas are probably struggling to somewhat, but there's four major areas that came up, and I think our unemployment rate is, I think, 4%. I think so when I looked, and the areas that are affected are healthcare, mining and construction, and retail. Okay, so there's a lot of factors that in a couple of those areas. Some of the healthcare roles, probably the pay rates may be a little bit low, so it's hard to get people, because we're also facing cost of living pressures all around Australia. You think of how expensive it is, if you've got a mortgage and add kids into that, and it sort of just accumulates. So I think the challenges are, I think, probably is educating our clients too that maybe we should be looking outside of the box, considering people that might have, one, that they've got the aptitude and the right attitude to do what they need to do, but also even if they can accommodate people not with all the skills, but if they've got partly the skills and they can grow into the role. And that's why I always say, providing they've got um, the the will, as the candidate has the will to grow with the organisation. So we need to have a look at that. Obviously, there is tapping into, because I know that we're getting a lot of migrants coming in as well. Seeing how we can utilise their experience and their services as well. I think yes, they're the ones that mainly come to mind. Those areas. So I think how do we get out of a labour shortage? Um, in the past we've imported labour as well on what used to be called the 457 visas. So I think that's. I think it's also for a lot of brighter minds than me to sort of figure that out. But yes, I think that those challenges, and I think also keeping the competition in between companies as well is also something that you need to consider. If someone is paying a few dollars more, um, you will see candidates, leave, uh, you know, jobs, and especially temporary roles. And obviously, security is a big thing. So where a lot of organisations where they may be looking or hiring as temporary or fixed term contracts. People are always looking for that security. So a permanent role is gold. Is the way I put it.
Good. We talked about educating the job seekers. So, are there any resources like books, websites?
So definitely start with Seek. Seek has they're obviously the biggest platform here that we have in Australia for as a job board. So they do sign up, put your profile on Seek, and you will get the opportunity to um, you know to engage in their content as well. I think that relationship with your recruiter is great. I think because you'll get a lot of information from them, not only on about the roles that are going on, but how to handle, let's say, for example, a panel interview, if there is more than one person interviewing, sort of thing. So um, I know you're smiling because you've probably done a few of those yourself. So, there is a way of, doing that. And also, if they're going for jobs in government where there is a selection criteria, being able to answer that. So I think that's why I think the relationship with your recruiter is good. And I understand that recruiters are pressed for time. I've always made it, I always keep my door open for that because I think at the end of the day, we want to get people working um, because of obviously the obvious benefits. But that's what makes me smile is placing people into roles, and even if it's not through, my agency or any agency that I'm working with, if I can have that, because they'll always remember you. And still to this day, I still get, you know, by the way, I've moved, to a different role, or I'm looking for a different role. Can you refer me, or can you help our organisation as well? So there's that there. There is a lot of resources online. You can go to some of the HR websites as well that have sort of specific. But I think also get some guidance from your recruitment consultant would be my first thing I would say, and have a look at other resources like salary surveys too, because that'll also give you. And I think a couple of the bigger
Mhm.
agencies they do one. I think Hayes does a salary survey, which will give you an understanding of the market. Or even, Seek will provide that information too. So have a look for salary surveys just so that you know what to expect from a certain role. But yeah, I think your relationship with your recruiter, um, is probably your best way because then they can give you tips and sort of guide you that way.
Yeah, those salary surveys are very important because many times you get asked like, "What's your salary expectation?" and then that can help in there because otherwise you are just giving a dart in the darkness. Anything to share?
No, not really. Nothing that comes to mind. I would just say, sometimes, job hunting, job search can be, you know, can be disheartened. I was on the receiving end when I used to get the letters back in the day, and I used to open them up and I used to see, we regret to, and I used to just put back in, like I knew that I didn't get the job, sort of thing. It's about, keep persevering. Um, I would say, as a job seeker, a door will open. Sometimes it just takes time, but a door will open. And I'm happy to help anyone out that sees this through your podcast too. If they want to, get in touch with me, I'm happy for you to pass on my details, normal, So, um, but no, other than that is, yeah, just get all your documents ready. So when you're using recruitment agencies, you're ready to go. That would probably be my sort of best advice when in using agencies. And yeah, just keep the faith and keep knocking on doors. One's going to open. It just takes a little bit of time.
Thank you. Feel free to give your contact details if you want. Like, how can people reach out to you?
So I'm happy to give out my mobile number. It's 0422 167 724, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Just send me a text because I'm always free. I do screen my calls for the simple reason I get a lot of spam calls as well. So just send me a text saying you want to have a chat, and I'll definitely get back to you, or leave a message. I'll be more than happy to assist any of your viewers and any of your listeners.
Wonderful. I think that's a good good place to give it a rest. And thank you for your insights. Thank you for sharing your
Yeah,
experiences and
yeah, it
the
is. It
memories
is.
that you shared. I like the one with moving the horse because that's a funny one. Yeah, but yeah, thank you. You're doing a great job, and helping people. I've learned a lot from you over the years. Every time I have to move to a new
Yeah,
job.
definitely. We'll definitely catch up, Nirmal. And again, thank you for the experience of having me on your podcast. You've got some great content on it, and I would urge anyone that sees this particular podcast check out Nirmal's other podcasts. There's some great interviews on there. And once again, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks, Fabio. Thank you.